A boy sitting on a tree stump in the forest is sketching animal figures when a shot rings out nearby, and a wounded deer collapses in front of him. The hunter calls the boy over and hands him a knife, demanding that he finish off the animal. The boy looks into the creature's eyes, and sometime later, the artist Reed and his pregnant fiancée, Olivia, are celebrating their engagement in Reed's parents' cabin in the woods. Friends and relatives congratulate the soon-to-be family, while Reed takes pictures with an old Polaroid. Reed's friend from college congratulates him on winning the affection of the girl he's been courting since their student days. Meanwhile, Reed's comics are starting to become popular, so he's definitely going to succeed. Finally, the celebration ends, and Reed and Olivia say goodbye to his parents. Reed's father gives him a lighter, even though Reed doesn't smoke, and asks him to be careful. Reed pulls onto the road. Suddenly, Olivia insists on taking a shorter route. Even though Reed doesn't like the idea, he obediently goes along with his fiancée's request. Along the way, they talk about Reed's father, who placed a whole bag of various supplies and tools on the backseat of their car, items that might come in handy during the trip. Suddenly, at an intersection, Reed's car nearly collides with an oncoming vehicle. Reed manages to swerve. The car spins on the road, and once they stop, they can't figure out where they came from or where they need to go. There's no cell reception either. Then Olivia notices a sign, and the car turns off. Soon, the couple arrives at a small store. They go inside and spot an elderly man sleeping under his hat. Reed tries calling out to him, but he doesn't respond at all, giving the impression that he might be dead. And just when Olivia is truly frightened, a shrill old woman appears from somewhere deeper in the house. She laughs at their fears and suggests they take the old road to reach inhabited areas. She adds that it's very beautiful and peaceful there. Plenty of time to talk and enjoy nature. At least it dramatically changed her and her husband's life. Reed sketches out a map, and the young couple sets out along the road the old woman indicated, still laughing about the odd pair they just met. Soon they reach a turn labeled Short Way and head into the forest, which is covered by a strange haze. On the asphalt lies the charred carcass of a rat. However, after a couple of miles, the scenery changes, and Olivia admits the old woman was right. It really is beautiful here. She even declares that getting home will be a breeze. Then she notices Reed's folder of drawings and begins flipping through them. The topic shifts to the gender of their future child because Reed wants a daughter. His relationship with his father wasn't great since his dad had been taking him on hunting trips from a young age. Once he forced Reed to finish off a dying deer, but the boy couldn't do it. He threw up and he hadn't brought a change of clothes. After that, his father never took him hunting again. At that moment, Olivia screams, and Reed barely manages to brake in front of an old car bumper lying in the road. He drags it aside, and as he comes back, he suddenly sees a drop of blood fall into the windshield. Immediately, torrents of blood seem to flood the car. He yells, but it all vanishes in a heartbeat, leaving Olivia staring at him, confused about what just happened. They drive on, and Reed notices that this short way is anything but short. They've been on it for hours, and there's no end in sight. Olivia, however, insists that it's only been about 20 minutes and suggests turning on the radio. The song is interrupted by a strange voice, as though it wants to warn them about something. Then they see an old man up ahead, dressed in ragged clothes, hitchhiking by the side of the deserted road. Olivia objects to stopping. There's something wild about this hitchhiker, and the road is completely empty. But Reed stops anyway. As soon as he tries asking the man a question, the stranger grabs a stick and attacks the car. Reed floors the gas and they speed away. Olivia is upset that Reed never listens to her. After all, the man turned out to be dangerous. Tension sparks between them as Olivia reminds him that she's always the one dealing with difficult issues while he's lost in his drawings. Reed brings up the incident 3 years ago that changed their relationship. Olivia apologizes yet again and professes her love, but Reed hears the same voice on the radio saying the woman doesn't love him at all. That's when Olivia asks him to stop because she needs to use the restroom. Reed brakes, and the woman, before stepping away into the woods, once again declares her love in hopes that their daughter's eyes will be just like his. She goes behind a tree, but suddenly hears some noise and becomes alert. And right in front of Reed, a large pine cone falls onto the road. He steps over to examine it, and when he turns back toward the car, the rear door is open. Meanwhile, Olivia slips on the grass and falls, noticing someone approaching through the bushes. She screams. Reed jerks in surprise and injures his hand, but he rushes to help. Then Olivia takes over driving, trying to explain that she saw some kind of animal. Reed hears a ringing in his ears and suddenly starts talking about his last trip with his father, who forced him to finish off a wounded deer. Olivia feels like she's heard this story before, though she's not entirely sure. Reed thinks everything happening is strange and remembers his cut hand. Olivia promises to take care of it once they reach inhabited areas, but the road just keeps going. Reed dozes off and then tells Olivia about a dream he had in which they were arguing. But when he looks up, he suddenly sees his bride, bloodied and disfigured, behind the wheel, telling him they will never return home. Reed screams in horror and wakes up. Olivia teases her fiancé while he can't understand why they still haven't arrived anywhere. She's surprised by his question since they only just left and the road home should be a breeze. This comment alarms Reed because he's certain he's heard it before. He recalls the hitchhiker, but Olivia somehow believes Reed only dreamed that up. She also doesn't remember stopping in the woods or know how or when she ended up at the wheel. Suddenly, she brakes in front of an old car bumper lying in the road, but Reed distinctly remembers dragging it aside already. Olivia assumes she must have turned off somewhere while he was asleep. She has a terrible headache, so Reed reaches into the back seat to get her some chocolate. But the car suddenly starts moving, and Olivia sees the hitchhiker up ahead, who turns around, revealing herself to be a bloodied woman. Olivia screams, hits the gas, and swerves around the bumper. She tries to explain what she saw to Reed, but he didn't notice anything. They keep driving until once again they end up right in front of the same bumper. Reed suggests they calm down and assess their surroundings while it's still light out. They get out of the car and immediately find themselves in total darkness. Olivia remembers it was bright just a moment ago, whereas Reed insists night fell long ago. He checks the road and by flashlight spots a car up ahead. He notices it's already rusted through, abandoned there years ago. A strange sound comes from nearby, and they see blood streaming from somewhere above. They look up, and Olivia lets out a horrified scream. The flayed body of a woman is hanging right over their heads. Just then, a hooded figure emerges from the darkness. The couple rushes back to the car. Reed struggles to start the engine, slams on the gas, runs the assailant over, and then backs up. He's sure this isn't the hitchhiker, since that person was dressed differently. As they drive, Reed recalls his father's stories that hunters hang their prey in just such a way to carve the meat. Suddenly, they realize the car is out of gas, but a sign appears on the roadside at that very moment. Olivia remembers the old couple at the store, but Reed has no idea what she's talking about. He shows her a drawing from his folder depicting those same characters. Then, instead of Olivia, he sees an old woman in the passenger seat with a gigantic spider crawling out of her mouth. Reed screams in terror and snaps back to find himself sitting next to a calm Olivia, who assures him the road home will be easy. That's when Reed remembers the gas can, only to find it missing from the back seat. Their food and supplies are gone too. Reed suggests they run when a hooded figure with a knife appears in the headlights. Suddenly, headlights blaze from the other side of the road and a car horn blares. The killer turns toward the commotion, while Reed pulls Olivia out and they dash into the forest. They hide among the trees as Reed twists his ankle. They lie on the ground, watching the killer search for them in the darkness. Then a whistle comes from the road and the figure leaves. Olivia breaks down, lamenting that she'll never see her loved ones again. Suddenly, Reed hears an unfamiliar name, and Olivia is surprised he doesn't remember her friend, assuming he's simply forgotten. At dawn, they come out of the woods onto the road where their car still stands. Reed suddenly notices something hurts but can't recall where or how he got injured. Olivia tries to explain that they were running away and he twisted his ankle, but he doesn't remember being afraid of anyone. Everything is jumbled up in their heads and each tries to say what they recall, as if all this has happened a million times before. Reed finds a photo from their engagement in his pocket, but Olivia no longer remembers who it is. They argue, make up, and again profess their love. And then darkness falls. Reed comes to his senses, bound near a campfire, awakened by Olivia's voice. She's in the same desperate predicament. She says the killer still managed to catch them. Reed sees a hooded figure devouring a body dangling from a tree. Olivia cries in terror and begs forgiveness for her repeated infidelities. Stunned, Reed at least hopes the baby is his. Then they hear the killer's voice, saying the woman lied about everything and never loved Reed at all. He seizes Olivia and raises his knife over her. Reed shouts in helplessness, but suddenly another hooded figure emerges from the darkness and strikes the killer on the head. It's the old man, the hitchhiker. He frees the couple and orders them to run after him. Later in the forest, he admits he doesn't remember who he is or who he used to be. This road made him forget everything. He leads them through a burned-out section of the woods to show them their scorched car on the roadside, but it looks like it's been there for decades. The old man confesses that in all these years, he's never found a way out of here. But they did something special, and that's why the sign appeared. He only took their food, other people took the gas. They can also find more in other vehicles. The further along the road you go, the older the cars get. But if you go the other way, the old man suddenly falls silent and stops recognizing them. He screams and lunges at them, so Reed and Olivia run off. Morning comes, they trudge down the road. Olivia begs Reed to talk to her and recalls his trying to leave his own life after her infidelity. Once again, she asks forgiveness. Reed hopes to find more abandoned cars and break out of this loop. Then they hear sounds, hide, and see Olivia herself walking into the woods during that first stop. Reed sneaks up to the road, sees another version of himself. Reed, too, distracts him by throwing a pine cone and steals the gas canister from the car. Meanwhile, Olivia, too, is frightened by the noise Reed one made and runs back to the car. They reunite and end up in the car again, where Reed recalls his first deer hunt. Driving on a dark road, they spot the killer ahead. Reed honks to distract him so their other selves can escape. Olivia remembers the old man's hint. They did something differently before, so Reed drives in reverse. They arrive at a sign, and Olivia notices a scrape on Reed's head. Searching the back seat for a first aid kit, she instead finds scraps of the killer's fabric and a matching knife. Realizing Reed is the killer, she screams and forces him out of the car at knife point. He flees into the woods when he sees the killer approaching. In the rush, Reed drops the car keys, which the killer collects. Meanwhile, Olivia sees a bloodied version of herself in the driver's seat, scrambles out, and ends up in the grasp of another Olivia. Racing back, Reed discovers his fiancée stabbed and kills her attacker. As he tries to help, an older version of himself appears and stabs him. Through a haze of pain, Reed sees the old man dousing the area in gasoline and preparing to hang Olivia. Mustering his strength, he pushes the old man away, sets him on fire, and escapes with Olivia as the forest ignites. Lightning rages over the road, and the car vanishes in one of its flashes. Then Reed finds himself on the side of the road once more, but Olivia lies dead next to him. Their phones suddenly come back to life, and Reed's father, unaware of what transpired, promises his son will be able to forget everything. Reed says goodbye to his parents, explains that it's time, gets out of the car, and heads for the shortcut again, disappearing into the haze. A minute later, Olivia suddenly comes to and follows him. Reed sees a little girl in front of him, handing him the photo from his and Olivia's engagement. He notices she has the same blue eyes as his, and he embraces the child. This film is not just about a horrific journey. It also tackles relationship issues and personal traumas, adding psychological depth to the horror elements. The time loop themes intensify the sheer madness of these ordeals.